Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope you're doing well. Okay, so we're digging in to Friedrich Nietzsche's Thus Spoke Zarathustra. We were on the section that was titled On the Despisers of the Body. Now, he's a witty dude. Won't agree with everything he says, but reading him is kind of fun and nerdy. And so, let's dig in. Go ahead and listen to this as you draw, paint, whittle, in your garden. Your cat is taking over. You gotta put the cat in the crate. Whatever it is you're doing, alright? Let's begin. Instruments and toys are sense and spirit. Behind them still lies the self. The self also seeks with the eyes of the senses. The self seeks with the eyes of the senses. It also listens with the ears of the spirit. Well, obviously. Always the self listens and seeks. Hopefully, right? It compares, overpowers, conquers, destroys. It controls, and it is control of the ego too. Behind your thoughts and feelings, my brother, there stands a mighty ruler, an unknown sage, whose name is self. Ooh, that sounds interesting. Behind your thoughts, there's this sort of unknown sage ruler, the name of which is called the self. Well. What is the self is a very deep question. And to know thyself, you must do lots of introspection, right? I think we're all aware of that. In your body he dwells, he is your body. No, I wouldn't say he is your body. I would just leave it at he is within your body, and it is you. It's your soul, right? Don't want to get this duality going on. Don't want to get like that. There's not two people in one. There is more reason in your body than in your best wisdom. Maybe. I don't know about that. Because your flesh can feel like I need to rest. I need to sleep. I need to have intimacy. I need to eat. I need to run, right? But the mind, it's like there, but also your wisdom and life experience and what you've studied and what you've been taught and how you turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and how much wisdom He has given you, that is what can give you more reason. The body in and of itself can be highly hijacked. And who knows why your body needs precisely your best wisdom? Well, common sense. If I know I shouldn't be, like let's say a woman is pregnant, you shouldn't be jumping up and down, right? Your body should not be put under that type of pressure while it's carrying a human being. And your wisdom will help you realize how you need to regulate your body. Your self laughs at your ego. The self laughing at the ego. But this is the dichotomy here. The ego and the self. How are they related? And its bold leaps. What are these leaps and flight of thought to me? It says to itself, a detour to my end. I am the leading strings of the ego and the prompter of its concepts. Ooh, look at that. The I. The self says to the ego, feel pain here. Then the ego suffers and thinks how it might suffer no more, and that is why it made to think. Now this is interesting. I would have thought it was vice versa. The ego would be the one that says, feel pain here. And then the self would say how it would try to find a way out of that. It's interesting he does the reverse. The self says to the ego, feel pleasure here, then the ego is pleased and thinks how it might often be pleased again. And that is why it is made to think. Okay. He's repeating this phrase, made to think. Notice that? I want to speak to the despisers of the body. It is their respect that begets their contempt. What a sassy guy. So, it's not this... Okay, he's getting at the Christians here who have this sort of... Well, at least the Christians of his time. Who are really just like trying to get out of that carnal nature. Really seeing the body as a temple and understanding that the flesh does lead you to sin. So don't love the body. Do not be of the body, but to get out of the body in terms of spiritual advancement, right? It's interesting how he says their respect begets their contempt. Well, yes, because you're respecting yourself, so you don't worship your body, so you end up having contempt for your body. What is it that created respect and contempt and worth and will? The creative self created respect and contempt, and it created pleasure and pain. So the creative self, let's put that in quotation marks here. The creative body, so we have the creative self and the creative body, created the spirit as a hand for its will. No. That wouldn't make sense. The body can't come before the spirit must come before the body. The body can form, but the body would just be a shell without the spirit, without the soul. Like a snail shell, right? If the snail ain't in that shell, then it ain't a snail. It has to be animated. The body cannot create the body cannot create the spirit. That wouldn't make sense. No. Even in your folly and contempt, your despisers of the body, you serve yourself. I say unto you, yourself itself, you see that? Yourself itself wants to die and turn away from life. Well, that's kind of true. There is an aspect of every human that wants to exit this realm, turn away from life, but you must watch that. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests us and gives us strength. It is no longer capable of what it would do above all else, to create beyond itself. That is what it would do above all else. That is its fervent wish. So its fervent wish is to do above all else, he contends. But now it is too late for it to do this. So yourself wants to go under, O despisers of the body. So if it's too late for you to go above all else, he's contending that you just whittle off and die? I mean, he's describing depression here. O despisers of the body, yourself wants to go under, and that is why you have become despisers of the body. You say go under, I say go out. Because you can return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but you're not so necessarily supposed to long for death because you want to stay here and do more good deeds and earn your way into paradise. Right? So I would say you would excel outward and upward. To go under the dirt is technically true, but your body is leaving. It's gone. For you are no longer able to create beyond yourselves. Well, we can't create unless what Allah permits. And that is why you are angry with life and earth, and unconscious envy speaks out of the squinted glance of your contempt. So, being angry at life because you cannot go above and beyond, no longer capable of creating beyond yourself, that your eyes speak of contempt. I shall not go your way, O despisers of the body. You are no bridge to the overman. Again, he speaks here of the overman. Thus spoke Zarathustra. Now the new section is titled, On Enjoying and Suffering the Passions. This should get juicy. My brother, if you have a virtue, and she is your virtue, then you have her in common with nobody. What? No, of course there's common virtue. Because virtue is common. It is. Virtue of excellence, virtue of wit, virtue of chastity and modesty. You having something no one else has is, I think, a myth. But let's see what he says. To be sure, you want to call her by name and pet her. Well, yeah. We put a name on a virtue, to identify it. And to pet it means to warm up to it, to train it, cushion it, maintain it, nurture it. So yeah. And you want to pull her ear and have fun with her. No, not necessarily. And behold, you now have her name in common with the people, and have become one of the people, and herd with your virtue. Come one of the herd. You would do better to say, inexpressible and nameless in that which gives my soul agony and sweetness, and is even the hunger of my entrails. Ooh, well, that's very poetic, but some virtues can be expressed and can be named because they have empirical identifiers. There might be one that people can't tap into, but I mean, the virtues have been thought about a lot. May your virtue be too exalted for the familiarity of names. Ah, I see what he did here. So if you really have an exalted familiarity, is it really as exalted? If it can be named, is it really that special? If it's familiar, is it that special? Something being familiar, I don't think necessarily denotes it. What do you think? And if you must speak of her, then do not be ashamed to stammer of her. Then speak and stammer. This is my good. This is I love. It pleases me wholly. Thus alone do I want the good. I do not want it as divine law. What? If you don't want it as divine law, then how can it truly be a virtue? Alone do I want the good? Well, that wouldn't make sense. A lot of people want the good and want the virtue. I do not want it as human statute and need. It shall not be as a signpost for me to over earths and paradises. Why not? See, why don't you want it as a signpost to get it to paradise? What's wrong with that? It is an earthly virtue that I love. Well, then it's not really that great. If the earthly virtue doesn't get you to paradise, then how is it a virtue at all? That's what I'd argue. There is little prudence in it, and least of all the reason of all men. But this bird built its nest with me. Haha, that's a clever line. But this bird built its nest with me. You get it? Because to nurture, right? The nest, things are hatching, things are developing, growing, maturing, soaring. Therefore I love and caress it. Now it dwells with me, sitting on its golden eggs. Thus you shall stammer and praise your virtue. Once you suffered passions and call them evil. Well, yes. Okay, yes. Because some passions lead to evil. And the only fruit of them is evil. And by their fruits you shall know them. The passion fruit. The fruit of evil. But now you have only your virtues left, which is pretty cool. You can be passionate about your virtues, why not? They grew out of your passions. Well, exactly. Some of the virtues come from having a passion. Like if you have a passion for staying away from vice, this is a virtue that'll grow. You commend your highest goal to the heart of these passions. Then they become your virtues and passions you enjoyed. And whether you came from the tribe of the choleric, or of the voluptuous, or the fanatic, or the vengeful, in the end all your passions become virtues, and all your devils angels. That's a tit for tat line. The passions becoming the virtues, which become the devil or angels. Well, the vices would be the demonic one, and the virtues would be the angelic. Once you had wild dogs in your cellar, but in the end they turned into birds and lovely singers. Out of your poisons you brewed your balsam, you milked your cow, melancholy. Now you drink the sweet milk of her udder, and nothing evil grows out of you henceforth, unless it be the evil that grows out of the flight among your virtues. Well, can an evil come from a virtue? I don't think so. Wouldn't that violate being a virtue in the first place? That's a deep question that needs more thinking. My brother, if you are fortunate, you have only one virtue and no more. What? If you're fortunate, you only have one virtue? Fortunate? Is that a virtue? Very witty. Then you will pass over the bridge more easily. It is a distinction to have many virtues, but a hard lot. And many have gone into the desert and taken their lives, because they had wearied of being the battle and the battlefield of virtues. Well, I mean, it is a struggle to maintain the virtues, to get them, to maintain them, to adopt them and caress them and fortify them, but it can be done by the permission of Allah, the more practice. My brother, are war and battle evil? But this evil is necessary. I wouldn't think it's evil. War is not evil necessarily. That's a very interesting conversation. Depends on what the war is about. What is committed during the war, the rules of war. But this evil is necessary. Necessary are the envy and the mistrust and calumny among your virtues. Do virtues have envy and mistrust? If you have a virtue of wisdom, you are skeptical and you mistrust certain characters. But I don't think envy can come from virtue, because to not have envy is a virtue. But who knows? Behold how each of your virtues covets what is highest. It strives. Yeah, it covets, it wants that. Each wants your whole spirit that it might become her herald. I see. So each one is vying for supremacy within the body. Each wants your whole strength and wrath. Exactly, I see where he's going. Hatred and love. Each virtue is jealous of the others, and jealousy is a terrible thing. I mean, I can see how one could have a singular virtue that overrides, has a monopolistic view on the body, hold on the body. Maybe there could be some virtues that conflict, but again, you'd have to write them down and compare them and then analyze them and see where it's going. Maybe they could rule in a harmonic accord instead of vying for supremacy, like a confederacy, who knows. Virtues can perish of jealousy, surrounded by the flame of jealousy. One will in the end, like the scorpion, turns one's poisonous sting against oneself. Alas, my brother, have you never yet seen a virtue deny and stab herself? That's a witty line. If you have a virtue of chastity, and you get tempted by lust, that virtue might be self-destructing. It might destruct because it got overridden by something else. Right? So I see the poetic way he did that. Man is something that must be overcome, and therefore you shall love your virtues, for you will perish of them, and be rewarded by them, I'd argue, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Thus spoke Zarathustra. Very nerdy, very intriguing, I must say, this section on the suffering, the passions, and enjoying it. What do you think, fam? It is quite deep. The topic of virtue has been something really fun to think about, both spiritual and earthly. What do you think?